everybody. We're going to get started here in just a few minutes. I just wanted to say hi, and we're making sure our stream and everything is working out great. But we are going to be meeting on Google Meets, which if you look in the comment of Google, I just wanted to say hi. That was me. If you look in the comments of the YouTube chat, you'll find the link to our Google Meet. So feel free to join us there if you would like, or here rather, so you can interact with our speaker, and hopefully we can kind of see faces and get to know each other. So you'll see a few people popping in here, and so just come in as you arrive, and we'll get started. I am going to present real quick. If I can make it work. Okay. Let me start at the beginning. How's that? Okay. So just to kind of make sure everybody's on the same page, if you happen to have the YouTube live chat up, make sure your video is muted so that we don't get the feedback we got last time. I think that was our solution that we came up with. My name is Laura. I am the president of the Psychology Club this semester. The people you see in front of you are actually officers and our advisor. So I guess I'll just kind of show everybody's faces. We've got people coming in. I'm so excited. Obviously, like I said, my name's Laura. Erica is our technology officer. Goldie is our vice president. Kayla is our secretary. Di is part of public relations. Hi, Chris. Dr. Hurst is our faculty advisor. Sarah Young is our community service chair. I had to think of your full title. And we have Christopher with us today to speak. That's about it. So I'm going to run through a few little announcements before I pass it off to hopefully Kayla, if you're willing to kind of introduce Chris when it's time. Christopher, what do you prefer to go by? I just keep like shortening things and call you on whatever I call you. Oh, you're muted. I know you're a professor here, right? So anyway, so my first little bit of news, obviously this is our first meeting where we're switching to Google Meets as a kind of a new approach to these meetings, so that we can hopefully create that community again, and there's not a disconnect between us who are meeting in these kind of meetings and the rest of the members. So we would love for you in future meetings to join us on the Google Meets link. We will continue to stream live via YouTube Live. But like I said, we'd love to move over to actually having you in this kind of a setting. So our next meeting is November 5th at 1 o'clock. So it's basically 2 weeks from now. And it will be in Google Meets as well. And then on November 19th at 1 p.m., we are going to actually be meeting on campus in the education building on Broken Arrow campus at room 109. And we're going to be assembling the homeless donation bottles, which I'll talk about in a minute. Our next meeting is actually the Mental Health Association of Oklahoma. We're going to have a representative from there. They're going to discuss what they do, what their goals are, how you can get connected, and hopefully answer questions you might have for them. So be prepared to have questions, and we'd love for you, to have a nice sized group come in and get to. Sorry, I got slightly distracted. Hopefully have a nice large group to have a good conversation with them about the association. The homeless bottles I was referring to are something we've been collecting over the last almost year now. And we have a table set up on the first floor of the education building, right by, what entrance is that? That's the west entrance. I had to think what my directions are on campus. The west entrance on the first floor, and you can just basically drop any donation items you have in there. We have a new goal of trying to get 100 bottles and 100 bottled slash backpacks together full of these items. So we're needing more items. So if you want to enlist family or anything to try to gather some more, please do so. And then our deadline for this is on November 19th or 18th, which is the day before this Thursday meeting. So we will be actually at the campus. We're going to be abiding by social distancing, so masks are going to be required. We'll be sanitizing everything. Everybody be wearing gloves. One thing that we are switching up a little bit is, well, I kind of give you guys a heads up on this. If there's any changes with the campus as far as allowing us to be on campus, or their guidelines for what's required, or whatnot, we'll have to adjust. But for right now, we're leaving this on campus, and we will do everything we can to keep us separate from each other to be able to accomplish this, but still be able to fulfill this. Because like I said, we've been doing this since January, and that's a long time. That is a long time for us to be doing this, and I would love to actually be able to deliver these to those in need. So anything and everything, even if it's just writing a quick note to a homeless person and slipping it in the box there. If you cannot make it to campus to deliver items and you need maybe an address to mail things to, feel free to reach out to me. I will give my email address at the end of the meeting so that you can email me and we can arrange another way to get that from you. Sorry, we have a couple of volunteer opportunities, or at least one coming up. It is this Sunday, the 25th, from 4 to 6 p.m. And it's the county fair. Sarah, I don't know if you want to say a little bit of something about that volunteer opportunity. I'm not sure if she's in a place she can talk.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm at work, so I'm like doing this from work. But yeah, so we're gonna have like a petting zoo here, and that they might need help with. It's kind of up in the air, but it just kind of where they'll put us where we're just in need the most. So yeah, just from 4 to 6, and it's for kids. So I think it'll be fun.
So if these types of events that we do, community service things or volunteer things with, I always advise those participating or those that may be potentially interested in participating to really look at what you can get out of this. This is not just about being a body for them to, put wherever they need you. This is where you have an opportunity to watch families together, dynamics, look for, how they interact with one another, especially if you want to go into anything that has to do with family counseling or anything like that. These kind of opportunities are really good for that particular thing, is just to interact, see how they interact with other people, how they interact with one another, all of those things. So there's still really good opportunities for, psychology in general in these kinds of volunteer situations. So I know that we do need some additional volunteers for it, and there is a Google form to sign up for that. And I'm not sure, Kayla, could you put in the in I guess both locations, the chat in Google Meets and in on YouTube Live, our link tree, please. So in our link tree, we have all the links that we reference for pretty much anything all semester. So obviously, go there. There is a form that you can fill out, and like I said, it's this Sunday, so it's a little bit short notice. But if you are looking for volunteer opportunities, just want that experience, whatnot, that's a really great thing to do. We are going to be switching things up. We had originally decided to do geocaching, and due to some interesting situations with COVID and a couple of us having to be in quarantine at various times, so far all of us are healthy and fine. I know my test results came back negative, so no one's stressed. But due to those sorts of situations, it's becoming a little bit too close to home for right now. So we are going to be doing a movie night online. It'll be on Saturday at the same time, 7 p.m. And we're going to be doing this in the Psychology Club Discord, which you can find that link in the link tree as well. A Discord is basically like a chat room, if you will. And I'll be streaming the movie so you can see it and hear it and everything from my end, and we can kind of all enjoy it together. So if you're interested in doing that, be sure you go and vote for which movie we're going to be watching. And that Google form is in the link tree. Surprise, surprise. It should be the first one at the very top. Just make sure you vote so we know what movie to be ready to stream. We have a couple giveaway winners that I wanted to announce. Every volunteer opportunity or activity that we do in the next, for the rest of the semester, there's going to be a giveaway. We started this with our Salvation Army volunteer opportunity, and that winner was Sarah. For our coat drive, we had Hannah Meredith. So they have both won water bottles, which I wish I had one right in front of me, but I don't. They both won water bottles, so I'll be reaching out to both of you to see how we can get those to you. We do have our midterm giveaway, which is a little bit bigger giveaway that we'll be giving away on Saturday for everybody who attends the movie night. It's a $25 Quick Trip gift card, a Psychology Club water bottle, sticker, and magnet. So kind of fun little exciting thing to give away. I like giving things away, so here we go. We still have our cords available for purchase. Remember, they're not allowed during the actual ceremony, but obviously you're completely entitled to them as long as you've paid your membership dues and have met your attendance requirements. Kayla, could you make a note? We need to send out an email to everybody letting them know their attendance status. Sorry, these things come up and I'm like, hey, Kayla. We also have t-shirts still available and masks. The masks are $10, t-shirts are $20. The deadline for these is October 30th. So we've still got about a week-ish, a little more than a week. So if you know of anybody who's interested in purchasing one of these, obviously the link is in our link tree. So feel free to go there, share it with anybody you think might be interested. It has our PayPal link. It has our PayPal link on the form so that you can get the money to the right place. Now, our actual speaker is Chris. Kayla, are you able to share a little bit about him?
Sure.
Okay.
He is my intro to psych counseling class professor, so I thought that he would be really great for speaking on what it's like to be an LPC. He works at Family and Children's Services. I think you're leading a team there. So I just wanted to hear about his experience, and I thought everyone could benefit from that.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here. We really, we're excited. We obviously know that this NSU is predominantly in our master's program is counseling. So there are a lot of people who are doing that. So hearing somebody who is in that industry, I know you're teaching as well, but you have some familiarity with the actual industry. So we'd love to hear a little bit about that. So thank you.
Sure, yeah. And can everybody hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I'm actually, as an NSU alumni, I don't mind talking, and I always enjoy getting to share my experience in the program as well as my experience in the field with all of my students and everybody that I get to talk to. So I guess just a brief, I know I gave you guys a summary, but just a brief little tidbit about me is I did my bachelor's at NSU, graduated there, immediately went to the master's program. I got super lucky and got grandfathered into KCREP, as they were getting accredited, so that was nice. Graduated there in the end of 2014. Started working at a smaller agency in town, seeing mainly middle school kids. And I did that for about 2 years, but at the same time, I also started teaching. So I've been teaching at NSU for 5 years now, since 2015. And so I saw middle school boys for probably about 2 years, and then I decided to make the smart decision and switch careers whenever my son was born. So, because that's a good time to do that, right? So I switched careers and I moved to Family and Children's and actually started working with adults at Family and Children's, mainly doing intakes, so doing a lot of initial assessments, getting established with services, pointing people in the right directions. Family and Children's is a great agency. I love working there, but we also have something like 75 different programs now. And so part of my job down there was to navigate those people and try and make sure I get the right referrals to the right places. But now I am leading a team. I've been on what we call, it's actually a nationwide mental health program called the PAC team, a program of assertive community treatment. I've been doing that now. It'll be 2 years in January that I've been leading that team. And I absolutely love it. It is just a lot of fun. So that's kind of my basic experience. I think to describe the PAC team a little bit is it's an interdisciplinary team. So I'm the team lead. I manage a team. I do all the supervisor stuff, but I'm also responsible for admissions to the team because we have a limited amount of people that we service. And we only have up to 100 clients on our team. And these 100 clients, I usually handpick from referrals that we get. But basically, they are then serviced by my team, which consists of 4 therapists, 4 case managers, 3 nurses, a peer support specialist, and then a psychiatrist. And so all of us work together, and we all meet every single day about all 100 of our clients. And we kind of go from there. And the people who we admit have a primary diagnosis of some form of schizophrenia, schizoaffective, bipolar 1, sometimes MDD with psychosis, but basically one of the criteria to get in is having some form of psychosis. And we deal with the people, or we service the people that haven't been successful in traditional outpatient and can't really just go to an appointment or can't just attend the screening. I like to describe it as about 1% of the population has some type of diagnosis of schizophrenia or psychosis, and we service the sickest 1% of that 1%. Is who the PAC team service. And so right now in Tulsa there is, I think there's about 4 teams in Tulsa right now. So total between all 4 teams we have about 400 clients that we all are well aware of and all share. And every now and then teams will trade clients. It's kind of weird, but it's a lot of fun, and I just absolutely love doing it. So what my experience currently, what did I do? I got my LPC, so I started that in 2015, and when I got approved by the board, I was working part-time seeing kids, and so I was accruing hours pretty slow, and took me a total of almost 3 years to get my license. So I started in summer of 2015, and I got confirmation from the board that I was fully licensed in 2018. And so when I started at Family and Children's in 2018, I finished my hours in about 4 months after working on it for about 2 years. And then as of last month, I got approved by the board to be an LPC supervisor as well. So I just started that recently, which is cool. I'm really bad about talking about myself, so I do much better with interaction and questions and feedback and talking. So if I missed anything or if anybody has any questions, that would be great.
I do have a question. So you were working with middle school children. Did you feel prepared to start working with the sickest 1% of the population?
No, I did not. So I think one of the things that I really gravitated towards in school and in grad school is I really enjoyed talking about diagnoses. I really enjoyed talking about getting into like the really like minute details of and like the technicalities of diagnosis. I love that. Ate it up. And a lot of what I do now is I get to dig into, and this is going to sound boring to most people, but I get to dig into years worth of hospital discharge records. And I get to dig into years worth of different diagnoses. And I get to look at family history, and I get to take this mess of like a ball of yarn that is a lot of our clients that I get, and I get to unravel it and lay it out and roll it back up in a nice little scheme to like then provide to my team of like, hey, we get to try and work with this client now. So I also did have kind of a transition period. So I went from working with middle school boys, and a lot of times I got the boys that did not really want to talk to a therapist. And so a lot of times they didn't realize that I was a therapist until like we sat down and started doing paperwork. And so they're like, oh, you're a therapist? I'm like, yeah, dude, that's why I'm here. That's why we're talking. I'm like, oh. I remember one of my boys, when I first started seeing him, he's like, you don't look like a therapist. And I go, well, what does a therapist look like? And he goes, they're typically like old white dudes with like a big belly, like balding. And I'm like, I mean, there's probably some that look like that, but like, that's not how I look. So
I'm doing so good.
I did that for a long time, and I loved it. And then when I switched to family children's, that middle period that I had before I started working on PAC,
I'm doing so good.
I was seeing a large variety of adults, because these are all people coming in for initial services or to come in to mainly do like assessments and paperwork. And so they were all over the place. I saw some of the people that are now on my team. I remember meeting with them in intake and them not doing so well then, and then now they're on my team now. And some people who really were pretty stable and just coming in with mild symptoms of anxiety, but that's how they got access to their medications, was by services through us. And so that was kind of a prep for it. And then when I was there, I remembered when I was working with that population for about that year, I remembered that I loved dealing with and managing psychosis and interacting with people who had experiences of psychosis. And the best way I can say this is that it was so much fun. It's the stories that you've heard and some of the things that you're told while you're sitting with these clients, you can't make up. You can't write. There's just no way that your imagination can even like get to that.
Does anyone else have any other questions you want to ask?
So when you first went in for your LPC, did you kind of know what you wanted, or did you discover that like through the process?
When you say know what I wanted, do you mean like know what population I wanted to work with?
Yeah, population and like what aspect of just LPC in general that you wanted to do.
I felt like when I was in school, I really wanted to work with adolescent boys and adolescents just in general, and do a lot of counseling with them. And that was kind of the population I gravitated towards. One of the other classes that I've taught several times and that I really enjoy teaching is adolescent psych. It's one of my other favorite topics to talk about. And so in school, that's what I really gravitated towards. But then in practice, when I actually got out in the field, is when I like really latched on to the diagnosis of psychosis. And it was honestly kind of a surprise to me, because I got thrown in and started like seeing a lot of these people, and I was like, oh, I really enjoyed doing this. That was a lot of fun. And then other therapists, some of my colleagues at the time, or some of my coworkers, were like, I don't know how you do that. And I look at kid therapists now, and I go, I don't know how you do that. So it was very much a kind of a surprise to me, and almost kind of like a shocker to me that's what I gravitated towards. That just reminded me of something else too. So I mentioned there's a couple different PAC teams in Tulsa, and we all talk and we all know each other because we all work with the same type of clients. And I actually had, as an instructor at TCC, one of the other team leads from a different PAC team was my instructor. And I remember thinking in that class at TCC, I'm like, man, she's really knowledgeable. She knows a lot about this stuff. She's really good at diagnoses. And it was probably one of the best classes I ever took. I carried I learned so much too. I carried a lot of the information that I learned from abnormal psych at TCC over to when I took abnormal psych at NSU, and then again in psychopathology in grad school. And now I've gotten the opportunity to teach it, and I find myself structuring my class and doing the same things that she did just because I'm so passionate about it. Anyways, side note.
A great side note. I had a question. What was the biggest hurdle that you felt like as you were going through your education and then going into the first part of your career? Like, what do you feel like the biggest hurdle was you had to overcome?
I mean, I think the first initial hurdle was being a broke college student and having to pay for like all the licensing fees that you have to pay for when you start being a candidate. I mean, it's almost like a legitimized pyramid scheme. You're like, oh, I've got to pay for my background check, and now I've got to pay for my license, and then I've got to pay my supervisor, and what else do I have to like? I don't have a job. Where do you think this is coming from? And so once you get past that hurdle, and there's opportunities, and I don't want to scare anybody by saying that, because there's tons of opportunities to get that, and it's really not much. I was probably just really broke at the time. But there's also opportunities to have free supervisors as well, or like agencies will pay for your supervisor when you start. But I think beyond that, it was really the anxiety of picking an agency and picking a supervisor, because you got to think that when you pick an agency, especially at some agencies, when you pick an agency and then sign a contract saying, I'm going to be here for 2 years because you're paying for my supervision, that's a big commitment. And so there's a lot of anxiety around that, and picking my supervisor and making those big commitments like that to my license, to my career, was more so of like a mental barrier more than like an actual barrier. I think the financial aspect of it is just the initial shock of like, well, wait a minute. But after that, it's making those decisions and trying to just feel confident in those decisions when you make them. I think on that note too is, as an LPC supervisor now, I encourage people to shop around. Just like we tell clients in the field, and just like we talk about other people, like not every therapist is meant for every client. Same with every LPC supervisor. Not every LPC supervisor is meant for every supervisee. You got to think that you're going to be seeing this person every week, especially if you're working full time. You're going to be seeing your LPC supervisor every week for an hour and a half. You're going to get to know somebody. Like, that's a long time. And so it needs to be someone you feel comfortable with. It needs to be someone that you can trust. It needs to be someone that you're going to be able to sometimes process your own stuff going on. Because a lot of times that becomes our barrier to working with clients.
So when you pick a supervisor, do you know what kind of work you're going into? Like, so your supervision hours were in middle school. Did you know that? Is that correct?
Typically, how the process is all kind of muddled because of the board requirements and also because of varying agency requirements. But basically, typically you're going to pick an agency first because the board requires proof of employment. And so you pick an agency, and then that agency either helps you find a supervisee or will hold off starting you until you find an LPC supervisor. And so, but I'll just use Family and Children's as an example. What we do for new candidates and for new supervisees is we say, congratulations, you've got the job. You're going to be working with, you're going to be working in a school, and like you pick the job, you get hired for it. You know what your population you're going into. But then they go, well, you're an LPC candidate, so you need a supervisor. And they give you, and at Family and Children, we literally give you a list of approved supervisors at the agency. And Family and Children's is one of the agencies that will cover your supervision as long as you're employed with the agency. And so they go, here is a list of all our approved LPC supervisors. Here, there's contacts. You're more than welcome to reach out to any of them and choose one, and let us know when you choose one, and we'll get you started. And so
does the type of work change? Like the population you work with change, or you're like stuck with it for 2 years? If you're like, I hate this.
So for bigger agencies, so like Cree Oaks, Family and Children's, Grand Lake, I mean, a few of the other bigger ones in town, you can hop around. So like at Family and Children's, again, we've got 75 programs. And so if you get into school-based and you're like, this is not what I want to do at all. I do not like this. Then you can tough it out until you're able to find an opening at a different program or working with a different population, and you can transfer. And the only thing that's going to transfer is your job. Your LPC supervisor stays the same. Everything else stays the same, especially if you stay internal. Now, if you move agencies, that's a different bag of worms, because then you got to worry about, well, now is my new agency going to still pay for my supervisor? Are they going to let me be seen for free since I'm no longer at their agency? Are they comfortable supervising me even though I'm not working at the same agency? I mean, you've got a whole other list of considerations that you have to take in mind whenever doing something like that. But yeah, I would encourage people to especially as a new therapist, and I hope that you guys get this experience in practicum and internship, to have multiple experiences. So work with varying different clients and say, okay, well, I worked with a couple of adults in Prac 1 and I didn't like it, so let me try kids as my internship. And then you can really start working with kids. You're like, oh no, maybe I want to go back to adults. And so everybody has an opportunity to switch around and do that. But I think it's just sometimes, like with me, you get surprised by what like becomes natural and what just kind of flows when you start working.
Yeah, I did like a mini supervision thing with someone who just screened middle school kids. And so I just sat while they screened them, and I was like, so I was surprised by how like self-aware they were, and they're like willing to volunteer information. And I'm like, so you don't want to like talk to them, or like, she's like, nope, I'm just here to screen them, do my job, and leave. And like, she was an LPC, and I was like, oh, maybe I think I definitely want to do counseling. Like, I don't.
Right, and that's a really good point too, because there's some people and there's some clinicians out there that really don't want to do the like therapy work. And that's okay, because there is tons of assessment work out there that you can do, and which is still considered therapy and still considered a part of what we're trained and what we learn to do is how to properly analyze. And so there's some people out there, like that's mostly what I did when I worked in intake for family and children's, is just assessing and screening all day long, which was kind of a nice break, because I got to say, okay, I think this is where the program you belong with. I think this is where you need to go. Good luck. And then I was done. And I also enjoyed, like, I love working with my practicum clients right now, or not my practicum clients, my students' practicum clients, and seeing them like really do some therapy and like getting into that. I'm like, yeah, it is a lot of fun. And then doing some of the therapy that it's not the therapy I was trained for, but the therapy that I've learned to do with my clients now that I have is also a lot of fun. And I really enjoy it. It's just, as a supervisor, I don't get to do it as often as I'd like.
Yeah, I was really surprised by how she didn't. I was like, I just want to sit there with them and like draw more out. And like, she's like, no, I don't want to do that. I just want to send them on their way. And so then I was like, well, now I have questions about, like, before I go into the master's program, or once I do, like, I want to get a chance to decide, because yeah, what if I hate it? Although it did seem like a really nice like clock in, clock out kind of job. So
right, and I think that's a really cool part about NSU's program, is that it trains you and gets you ready for so many different LPC type jobs. Because I mean, I'm sorry, I just had to refrain from using the language I typically use. My not so smart self. As soon as I graduated as an LPC or as a master's level, I had 3 jobs. I was doing part-time counseling. I was helping manage a form of, it's called health homes, and I don't know if anybody works in the field right now, but it's a form of services provided by the state with people who have Medicaid. And so it's a form of like case management, rehab, stuff like that. And so I was helping manage data for that, counseling, and then teaching. And so I look back on it now and I'm like, man, how cool is that I got to graduate from a program and get a license that allows me to do 3 different jobs that have 3 very different roles all at the same time.
I know you mentioned with family and children the people that work in schools. Mm-hmm. Are those like school counselors, school psychologists? What are those?
Typically, the people that the agency employs for school-based are going to be therapists. So LPCs, LCSWs. I think we've got a few LMFTs that work in school-based. But those are we call them school-based therapists. They're not school therapists. They're not school counselors. They are therapists that are embedded in the school, seeing kids there. And so that's kind of what I did when I worked with kids at the smaller agency, because the school itself couldn't afford to cover having a full-time therapist there. And their school counselors were overwhelmed with doing administrative stuff or doing other stuff like that, that they couldn't see these kids, but these kids clearly needed services. So a lot of times schools, especially TPS, will sign contracts with different agencies and allow that agency to come in and provide therapists and provide clinicians to do the work that the school counselors can't.
So could they only do the work within the school, or could they work with the parents outside of the school?
Mm-hmm. That's the fun part. Since you're not at the school, you can go to what I did, and this isn't for everybody, but I would go to the clients' houses. I would go to the families' houses. We would do family therapy in the home. I would sometimes, what you'd have to do is meet the kid at home, and sometimes you couldn't do therapy in the home because it was just too wild. And so we'd walk around the neighborhood, or we'd go to a nearby park and we'd do therapy there. That was always a lot of fun to me. And I think I wrote in my little bio, again, because I'm bad talking about myself, but I wrote that I feel that therapy and this type of work needs to be flexible and it needs to be fluid, and we sometimes not just emotionally need to meet our clients where they're at, but sometimes literally meet them where they're at. You know how many times in my current job that I've squatted on the side of the road just so I can like sit down and talk to one of my clients, and I've got like traffic whizzing behind me, and I'm like, well, this is my job right now. I'm gonna go ahead and just pop a squat right here and talk to this person.
Yeah, the day I was at the middle school, I noticed that the like in-house counselor they had, she was like disciplinary, but then there was like another counselor who I think was just coming in and out of the school, and he was actually sitting down with them, and so then I was just confused overall about like what a school counselor does versus I don't know, it was weird.
Yeah, and I think if I remember correctly, NSU still offers the school counseling track for graduate school, and when they graduate, they're technically a licensed clinician. Like they're able to do therapy, but oftentimes what they get stuck with is doing like administrative work, managing classrooms, dealing with the like high need kids and stuff like that. So they don't get to do the type of therapy that the school-based therapists do that come into the schools from outside agencies. Because like for me, whenever we had summer break, I still had to see those kids. I couldn't just stop seeing them over the summer. That's fraudulent and unethical. So you have to start going out to their homes. You have to find a third-party place to meet them, and that's always a part that I really loved, because we weren't sitting in some stuffy library room that like is and oftentimes as an outside agency coming in, if the school doesn't have a good relationship or doesn't have a long-standing relationship, there are some times where they're like, yeah, you can use the janitorial closet over there, and I'm like, oh, cool. Or they'd say, well, you can just talk in the library, and I go, no, that's a public space. We're doing therapy. I at least need to like shut a door. Oh, you got to do that? Yes, please. And so there'd be times where we'd be in like the storage room of the library. Yeah, just all sorts of wild stuff.
Anybody else have any other questions they'd like to ask? Like crickets around here.
Yeah.
I said it's like crickets around here.
I do have a kind of on your side topic question or thing that you talked about with the professor you had at TCC. Was that Mezier?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, her name was, and she unfortunately, and I was really sad about this, she no longer works in PACT, but her name was Stacy King, and I think she works with BAPD now. But I had a moment, I didn't know when I was in school, I didn't know she worked on PACT. And when I graduated and started working on PACT, we showed up because we have quarterly meetings of all of the PACT teams. I showed up, I'm like, wait a minute. And I'm like sitting across the room from her, And she probably thinks I'm like this super weird dude because I'm just staring at her like, I know her. Why do I know her? And then she introduced herself, so I'm like, that was my teacher. I was like, I probably look like a fanboy or like some weird stalkery student. But afterwards, I was like, hey, this is going to be really awkward. But I had you taught me abnormal at TCC, and that I think that's one of the reasons why like I'm here right now is because you taught it so well. And she's like, that's really sweet. And then we just had a moment, we talked, but it's really funny because Tulsa, I think I say this to a lot of people too, is that the Tulsa mental health community is a very, very small community. It is very, very small. And the more connections you can make and the more people you can befriend and the fewer enemies you can make, the better. So
I was going to say, I think after you said her name, because you said you think she's at Broken Arrow Police Department now?
I think so.
It sounds really familiar. Her name does, and I work with police departments, so.
Okay. Yeah, we have a lot of involvement on my team with Tulsa PD because all of our clients are in Tulsa County. But I think she said she worked with BAPD now. I can't remember, but I know she's working with police doing screenings and crisis response and stuff like that. And she's one of those therapists that you meet, or one of those clinicians you meet in the field, and you're like, I could trust you, and I could get any type of guidance I need to from you, whenever. She is the adult when you look for an adult in the room.
Wait, you do that too? I'm like, wait.
So in my ethics class, I joked about this a lot because a part of ethics and a part of like the ethical code that you have to adhere to as a LPC is staffing and like double checking and making sure that you are making a sound decision. And I always joke that there's a lot of times when you just have to find an adult. You have to, and even as the adult, you have to find an adult. You have to be like, I need an adult right now. I need an adult to talk to. It happens a lot. But even now, still is in my position. I still sometimes go to my boss and be like, I need an adult.
I love that so much. I feel like I'm an older student, but I feel like I've been doing that for a very long time. And I'm like, does it end? It never ends, does it?
It never ends.
These children. Okay. All right. Well.
And I had the epiphany one day recently too, where someone came to me with that. And I'm like, oh, now I'm the adult in the room. Oh, you think I'm the adult here? This is bad.
As long as you're not like, okay, let's go find an adult. You're good.
I mean, I have had to do that sometimes too, because someone will come to me and they're like, hey, this is going on. And I go, oh, we need an adult for that.
Well, thank you so much for being here. This was a great conversation, and I know a lot of us have gotten a lot out of it, so we really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, no problem at all. And like I said, I really enjoy still teaching in the NSU, and I love still having the opportunity. So, and I know, Kayla, you've had me for 2 or 3 classes now, and I saw a few other names on here that I recognized that I think I've had in class. And I think this is just me in class. I love sharing knowledge, and I love being able to provide any type of insight into the field or into school as much as I can, because I was once a confused student, and so I want to try and alleviate any other confusion that other students may have. So
sometimes I think that's like the epitome of what a professor is like, let's just unconfuse everyone. Like, that's why I'm here. Like, that is my purpose.
Yep.
Well, I am going to go ahead and close our meeting. Again, thank you so much, and thank you all so much for being here. I'm going to pop a slide up so that you can see my email address. If anybody needs anything, have questions about anything, want to drop off donation items, or drop off, like arrange to drop off or to mail donation items, feel free to either contact me by phone or by email. And of course, any other questions, shoot my way. One thing that Jamie asked me to do was to just make sure if you send money through our PayPal link that you put your name and what the money is for in the notes so that we can identify you and it goes to the right person. Because there's been a few that were like, that's the name of company. I don't know who that is. So if you could do that, that'd be great. And of course, basically like look for our link tree for any link you're possibly looking for. But again, this weekend is our volunteer opportunity at the county fair. And we have our movie night on Saturday. So if you guys have any questions on how to access anything or anything like that, let us know. Otherwise, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.